Hey everybody, it's great to see you again. I'm back home in my own kitchen. We had a wonderful time on vacation, but we had to come back sometime. So the only thing that we miss really bad is A, the sunshine, although it's pretty warm here today, not too bad, and B, all of our friends. It was such a great time, and we want to say, hey you guys, we miss you guys so much. So hopefully we'll see you again really soon. But today what we're going to do is we're going to make homemade old-fashioned white bread. So we know amid this whole coronavirus thing going on, bread may be a little scarce out there. So this would be a great thing to learn if you haven't already ever made bread from scratch. This recipe is foolproof and it comes out delicious every time. So I'm going to teach you how to make it, and then you can make it for your family and your friends. It makes 2 loaves. So if you want to make more than that, double the batch. You can do 4 loaves, or if you just want to make 1 loaf at a time. I don't ever understand how someone would only want to make 1 loaf of bread, because to me, I'm gonna eat it, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Now there's a couple of different ways that we're gonna do this, as far as different stages that we're gonna do this. First up, we have to do our yeast mixture in this bowl. And we're gonna combine our yeast with a couple of different ingredients, and then that's gonna sit to the side, and then we're gonna do our other mix here in our mixer, and then we're gonna combine them both, and there you have it, and then it'll be yummy bread. Now you can substitute a couple different things in here. As I go through the whole show, I'll kind of show you different things, or talk about different ways that you can incorporate different things into this bread to maybe change it up a little bit. So it doesn't have to be just plain white old-fashioned bread, although this is a really great recipe. It's buttery. You use buttermilk in it. If you don't have buttermilk, it's okay. Just use regular milk, okay? It's not gonna change it too much. So let's get started. First off, you're just gonna need a small bowl off to the side, and you're gonna need 1/4 cup of warm water. I just use warm water out of the tap. I don't have to get it really warm, as far as I don't have to put it on the stove or nuke it or whatever. But the buttermilk I do. The buttermilk I put on the stove, and I just brought it to just a nice warm, kind of almost a simmer, okay? But not quite, just because I really want to keep everything as warm as possible, so that the yeast can really start to develop and activate there. So I've got 1/4 cup of just warm tap water, and that's gonna go right in the bowl into the mixture here. Now to that, I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of buttermilk. Now I have 2 cups in here, and like I said, I put this on the stove and I got it going, and it's steaming, okay, so it's nice and warm, but I just kind of mixed it up there because it does break apart. And you're gonna add 1/4 cup of the buttermilk there. You can see the little pieces just kind of separated in the milk, and that's totally fine. It's buttermilk is a little curdled because if you want to know how to make buttermilk, it's pretty easy. It's just regular milk and vinegar. You can make your own at home. I think a cup of milk to a teaspoon of vinegar, and you just put the vinegar in there and it turns it to buttermilk. So it's just kind of if you want to use buttermilk and you don't have any, go ahead and just add a teaspoon of vinegar, regular vinegar, to per cup of milk. So this recipe calls for a total of 2 cups of buttermilk. So add 2 teaspoons of the vinegar, and you should be all set, okay? So I have got, so far, 1/4 cup of warm water, 1/4 cup of warm buttermilk right in here. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a stir, and to that I'm gonna add 4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. And I'm gonna mix that in here as well. I keep my yeast in the refrigerator after I open it. I guess it's just because my grandmother and my mother always did. I don't know if you need to. I don't even know if the directions say to refrigerate after you open it. I have no clue. All right, now to this you are going to add 2 pinches of sugar. Now what is 2 pinches last week? Does everybody remember that? Remember my cooking show with Mark? It's a skosh. So 1 skosh of sugar. That is 2 teaspoons. All right, or 2 pinches, I should say. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish kind of just whisking this together, just so it all kind of the little pieces, the little curdles of the buttermilk and the yeast all mixed together into a nice smooth mixture. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna set this off to the side, and it's gonna foam up, and it's gonna really, that yeast is gonna really activate itself in the warm buttermilk and the warm water, and it's just gonna be absolutely delicious. I think that looks about good. It's pretty smooth, and it's already starting to foam up a little bit. So I'm gonna set that off to the side, just let it set, okay? Now what we're gonna do next is we're gonna take the remaining 1 3/4 cup of buttermilk, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add this to our mix, our mixing bowl right there. And then we have got 3 tablespoons of melted butter. Now I've just put this in the microwave. I took 3 tablespoons off of a stick of butter, and I've just put that right into the microwave for about 30 seconds, and I've melted that down. So that's gonna go in the mixture here, okay? And then after that, we're going to go ahead and add 1 tablespoon of salt. And I just have 1 tablespoon measurement here, and that's gonna go right into the mixture as well. And then what we're gonna do after that is we're gonna add the sugar. Now the sugar is gonna go right in here. Now we added 2 pinches before, or a skosh, okay? And then what we're gonna add here is we're gonna add 2 more tablespoons of sugar. And I kind of round them up a little bit, because you definitely want that. It's not sweet bread by any way, shape, or form, but it just adds a little bit of sweetness with the salt to just make, and the butter, all of those ingredients are just major key ingredients to make this bread just taste absolutely delicious. So far in here, I've got my buttermilk, I've got the salt, the butter, and we just added the sugar. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add 2 cups of flour, all-purpose flour. It does not have to be bread flour, everybody, okay? I use King Arthur unbleached white flour. So I love King Arthur flour. I've always had great luck with it. I haven't had to ever buy like bread flour. I don't buy bread flour because, well, I've always, like I said, I've had great luck with the King Arthur, just regular unbleached flour, okay? So now at this point, you're gonna go just as the recipe says. You're gonna do the 2 cups of regular white flour, okay? Now I'm gonna just I've got the dough hook on here, and it's just gonna kind of mix, just to kind of incorporate that a little bit. My yeast mixture is still rising, so it's not quite ready to go in yet. And I wanna talk a little bit about what else we're gonna be doing to this mix. Now, I have, this recipe calls for all white flour. If you don't wanna use all white flour, say you wanna use some wheat flour, or you might have some oats, like the quick oats or regular oatmeal, put it in here. What you're going to do, if you want to add wheat flour to this, I recommend not using 100% wheat flour the whole recipe, okay? Just because it gets so heavy that it's gonna have a hard time rising. Even whole wheat flour at the grocery store isn't completely 100% whole wheat flour that makes it. You have to have a little bit of white flour incorporated in there in order for it to be able to rise, because wheat is such a heavy, because basically white flour is processed from wheat, correct? So, but it has a lot of the nutrients taken out of it, because those nutrients weigh a lot more, okay? The kernel and the whole shell of the wheat. So if you want that goodness of the wheat flour in your bread, I would recommend only adding 1 to maybe 1.5 cups of wheat flour. You could add maybe 2, okay? But this recipe doesn't call for a ton of flour. At most, I think it calls for 5 cups, right around there, maybe 6, depending on your mix. So if you want to take 2 cups of it and turn it into wheat flour, you can go ahead and do that. But try to have more white flour than wheat, and then you'll have a nice big fluffy piece of bread, okay? So this is incorporated pretty well. It's kind of all mixed in. So what we're gonna do now is we have our yeast mixture, and you see it's all foamed up and it looks great. We're gonna go ahead and dump that all in there. And then what we're gonna do is, as that's mixing, we're gonna start adding the flour. So again, this will be a total of between 5 and 6 cups of total flour. Now we've already put 2 cups in here, so we've only got a maximum of 4 cups left. Now I find that 5 cups, usually when I use buttermilk, 5 cups is my magic number. Now it may not always be the case with you, and it really depends on what you're using. If you're using a dough hook, it's going to be able to knead that dough a lot more than your hand. If you do this by hand and you're mixing and you're mixing and you're mixing, you're gonna get tired after a while, okay? So my recommendation, if you have a dough hook, you're gonna go probably 5 cups total, okay? So that's 3 cups there. These are in 3rd cup measurements, so, and there's 4 cups going in now. And I'm just gonna let those 4 cups just kind of mix, just for a little bit to incorporate it a little bit. And then this is where you're gonna really start watching it. So as the dough mixes together and as it starts pulling away from the sides of the bowl, you're gonna notice if it's still really sticky on your dough hook. If you're using a stand mixer, now if you're using your hands and you're mixing it with a spoon and then you turn it out onto your surface, you're gonna knead it by pushing it away, pulling it back, using the palms of your hand, pushing it away, pulling it back, pushing it away. Then you're gonna fold it in and keep doing that motion over and over and over again. If your surface starts to get sticky, just sprinkle a couple of tablespoons of flour on there and then just keep going. So if you're a person that likes to do it by hand or doesn't have a stand mixer, then do it that way. It'll work really well for you. Don't use a regular handheld mixer. One, because the beaters are not going to do you any justice with the dough. You're just better off to mix it with a wooden spoon in a bowl and turn it out onto a flour and let your hands do all the work. Okay? So that's actually looking pretty good. I think I can probably do another 2/3 to maybe a full cup of flour. So it's still a little sticky. So I'm gonna put 2/3 in. And I'm gonna let that mixer just keep going like that. I may add the remaining 1/3 of a cup. I don't know if I'll need it. I like my dough a little bit on the softer side. I always try and use less flour than more, just because I want it really soft when it starts to rise. Not sticky, but soft. So you want a nice smooth dough, and when you pick it up, it should be really pliable. Okay, so I'm gonna let this mix for a few more minutes. You're gonna wanna let it mix for about 5 to 8 minutes with your dough hook. You really want it to incorporate well. So this is the time to get a drink of water or go put a load of laundry in or whatever you gotta do, but just let the mixer do its work, don't rush it. And we'll be right back in a few minutes and we'll have the finished dough product and I'll show you what to do next. So hang on, we'll be right back.